Call of Duty just released their second matchmaking blog post, and it's right on par with the last one, gaslighting us into thinking that keeping the tight and restrictive nature of the matchmaking is the best for everyone, while avoiding the elephant in the room that their matchmaking is really based on player engagement and selling microtransactions. Never forget this moment in the first blog post where they attempted to gaslight us into thinking that engagement wasn't measured by asking this question, then redefining what engagement meant to dodge the context that we're talking about, and then later on admitting that they actually do track the hours per user or time played when measuring player satisfaction. So they denied a straw man, a false argument of using engagement, by redefining it as time played, and then completely contradicted that anyways in their next paper. Anyways, this is going to get even more fun in this next blog post, because they're really starting out strong. While skill is one of the many factors in matchmaking, it is not the driving force behind Call of Duty's matchmaking system. Alright, we get it. Skill isn't the driving force, even though it really seems like it is the majority of the time. But we know this to be true because there's something else that is really the big priority, and I've said it already: selling skins and keeping players engaged. This Activision-owned patent details lots of practices that factor what skins people are using in their matchmaking, and it lines up perfectly with different things that the game tracks to measure player satisfaction, as their ping paper states. So skill isn't their number one priority, and they can say that, but it's not painting the picture they want to paint. They previously stated that ping is king when it comes to COD's matchmaking, and that seems pretty far-fetched considering we've also analyzed how they've tried to gaslight us into thinking that skill doesn't affect your connection, but there has been graphs that show that players are sacrificing ping in order to be placed into lobbies based on their skill level. If skill wasn't a big influence in the matchmaking, this graph wouldn't even need to exist, because skill wouldn't be affecting ping at all. They can claim ping is their first priority because it's the thing they look for first when they're filtering out matches, but the secondary parameter is skill/performance, and as we've discussed earlier, performance is a clear indicator that engagement is being measured, as performance dictates how you did in the previous game. So the algorithm quite literally takes into account how you played the last game, whether it was good or bad, and uses that to see what match you should play in next. That sounds like an engagement-based system to me. Furthermore, skill can filter out options that otherwise have a good connection to you, so there is really no order of priorities, so to speak, in COD's matchmaking, because all of the parameters have to be equally satisfied to the right degree, or else you're not playing in that match. As previously detailed in the first matchmaking intel blog, Call of Duty has historically considered player skill among other factors as part of the matchmaking process as far back as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 2007. Ah yes, the classic "we've been using this similar system in your favorite OG COD games and you loved it back then" approach. This is the most humorously lazy argument in the entire matchmaking series they've been doing, and I'm surprised it even made the cut, to be honest. It's genuinely the lamest attempt at gaslighting their audience I've ever seen a corporation do. Any corporation. At least the other arguments I had to work to dissect and really scrutinize to find where the doublespeak was happening. This one is just brutal to read because we clearly did not experience anything like this back in the day. Okay, Pete, well, prove it. Maybe we're just more aware of it now. Alright, Activision shill, calm down. If they used anything similar back then, people would have been complaining since the first usage of it, and COD wouldn't be regarded as the gaming titan that it was back then. We would have nothing to look back on and compare these new COD games to. Just the fact that so many OG players can look back and remember it differently and confirm that things were so much different back then speaks volumes against what Activision is trying to gaslight us into believing. Better yet, you could put your zip code in your clan tag and get matched against people with nearby zip codes. You're trying to tell me that that system is similar to the systems we have now, which literally tell us they're trying to sacrifice as little ping as possible in order to find a match that you're eligible for. If this system was used back then, how were people satisfied with their connection? How are they finding people in neighboring towns? So how can even Activision get away with saying this? Well, they did say they use similar systems and said they have historically considered skill. Well, that may be true. Consider these two things. One, they considered skill, but it wasn't nearly as much of a prominent consideration as it is nowadays. And two, they could have just meant they used it for team balancing. That's enough to make this statement sound like the truth. Do you guys really think that this greedy corporation that holds white privilege struggle sessions and shuts down H2M the night before it goes live is telling us the whole truth with the intention to be kind and transparent? You are quite naive if you believe that. The existing matchmaking system allows a broader range of players to have access and exposure to all key parts of Call of Duty's game design and core multiplayer. This includes games where players can contribute meaningfully to their team, not only with wins, but for their own personal records and achievements. I can smell the communism from here. I get wanting all players to enjoy your games, but the fact that it seems like they want all players to experience wins and losses proportionately regardless of skill level, oh wait, they literally said that verbatim a couple months ago, is a little bit fishy. How are you going to allow both the top 10% of players and the bottom 10% of players to have similar stats simply because they're completely barred off from each other? What even separates the good from the bad at this point when everyone has around the same 1 KD and 1 win-loss ratio? Imagine being one of the better players in the game and one of your friends is way worse than you, but when you guys compare stats, you both have a 1 KD and a 1 win-loss. So who's better? Regardless of how good you are, chances are your stats look pretty similar to someone in the bottom 10% because of how rigged the algorithm is and Activision's design philosophies. Clearly, one of you is the better player, but there's no analytical way to measure how much better you are. The system strives for team balance, where players are not consistently on the wrong side of blowout matches. Players who frequently experience blowouts are seen to quit matches in progress in the game itself, which negatively impacts the experience for players of all skill levels. There's no way to guarantee that players don't consistently experience blowouts without some game rigging. I mean, it's obvious, right? Do you guys see what I'm talking about here? They literally admit that they don't like when players quit, so they strive to balance out the teams and the results by extension based on past results. For example, if little Timmy went 2-25 in last game and lost, and he's playing in a new lobby now, that's easier. The algorithm will work to avoid that experience for him again and throw him the better team to ensure that he wins. How is that fair and not tailored? There should be team balancing, and that's it. But now this blog post is making it sound like there's something that goes beyond team balance that messes with results in order to avoid all players not winning or losing too much so they don't quit. Players can see this impact in legacy Call of Duty games today. Older titles, which also have similar matchmaking systems, are active with predominantly high-skill players, which forces multiplayer lobbies to be created from that group of dedicated community members. Okay, am I the only one that finds this absolutely hilarious that they're doubling down on these similar matchmaking systems from the past idea again? It is seriously embarrassing and an insult to the golden age of the franchise. But anyways, they're pretending that this is somehow a surprise? Let's take Modern Warfare 2. I wonder why there's only dedicated high-skill players left in that game. Oh yeah, it's because the game is almost 16 years old and nobody besides serious players are even bothering to go back because they're risking getting doxxed by hackers anyways. So citing older games having only high-skill players is just an extremely weak argument, and they think it somehow showcases that having constant blowouts causes players to leave? How does a 16-year-old game show that we need to protect little Timmy when in that game there was barely any protection for any players at all? Wow. I just always think I can't be any more dumbfounded by the stuff Activision says, and I'm always delightfully surprised every single time they release something about their matchmaking. It is clear as day to see that they're trying to explain their way out of an extremely predatory system designed to nickel and dime players while making it sound as player-friendly as humanly possible. Although if we're trying to legally tackle the challenge of explaining the most overbearing and aggressive matchmaking in multiplayer gaming history, that's borderline criminal. They're not doing too bad for themselves. The problem is that trying to justify COD's matchmaking by only telling the truth in official statements means that as soon as you have a reader that can recognize gaslighting, doublespeak, a straw man argument, or any other logical fallacy, your paper falls through and you're outed for what you are. A bunch of lying, cheating scumbags. This paper, among the others, is just giving us more ammunition that something is not right with COD's matchmaking, and it's abundantly clear. Trying to justify this matchmaking like it's the best for everyone is like trying to justify that gambling is the best financial decision because eventually you're gonna win. Even the fact that they need blog posts and research papers that are dozens of pages long just shows that there's something not right with their matchmaking. It should be so much simpler than this. But that's all I've got for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm Prime Pete. Take it easy.